The Zorn Empire's flagship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Sol system, its crystalline hull refracting sunlight in mesmerizing patterns. High Commander Vexus stood on the bridge, his scaled hands clasped behind his back as he studied the blue planet on the main display. In 3,000 years of expansion, the Zorn had conquered 47 civilizations, and Earth would be their 48th. Preliminary scans complete, High Commander, reported Officer Crow. The species has achieved limited space travel, established a small colony on their moon, and maintains primitive orbital stations. Vexus's facial ridges twitched in amusement. Another simple conquest, then. Send the standard greeting protocol. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in humanity's most advanced command center, Admiral Victoria Pierce watched the alien vessel's arrival on holographic displays. She'd spent 20 years preparing for this moment, ever since Earth's deep space telescopes had first detected the Zorn Empire's expansion pattern. "They're broadcasting, Admiral," Lieutenant Raj Patel announced from his station. "Standard frequencies, unencrypted. They're not even trying to hide their presence." Pierce smiled. Their intelligence had been correct, the Zorn were confident, perhaps overconfident. "Let them think we're primitive, Lieutenant. Maintain emissions control on all advanced systems. Show them only what they expect to see." Across Earth, hidden preparations continued. In underground bases, stealth ships powered up their systems. On Mars, colonists activated weapon systems disguised as mining equipment. And beneath the lunar surface, quantum computers calculated precise targeting solutions for weapons that would reshape the nature of space warfare. The Zorn message played across Earth's conventional communication channels: "Greetings, people of Earth. The glorious Zorn Empire offers you the opportunity to join our civilization. Submit within 30 days, or face conquest. Resistance has proven futile for all who came before you." In the UN Security Council's emergency session, Pierce presented humanity's response strategy. "The Zorn expect us to either submit or fight conventionally," she explained to the assembled leaders. "They've never faced an opponent who could match their technology because they've never given a civilization time to prepare. But we've had 20 years. And you're certain they can't detect our true capabilities?" asked the Chinese premier. "Positive," Pierce replied. "Our quantum shielding makes our advanced tech invisible to their scanning systems. They see exactly what we want them to see, a primitive civilization barely reaching for the stars." The council voted unanimously to proceed with Operation Phoenix. On the Zorn flagship, Vexus reviewed Earth's response, a carefully crafted message of fear and desperate diplomacy. "High Commander," Crow reported, "their orbital platforms are powering down. Their primitive military vessels are returning to port. They appear to be preparing for submission." "As expected," Vexus replied. "Prepare the integration fleet. 49 ships should be more than sufficient for a civilization at this level." But in her undersea command center, Pierce watched the Zorn's movements with growing satisfaction. Every ship they positioned, every scan they conducted, revealed more about their tactical doctrine. Their technology was impressive, but their strategy was predictable. They'd never needed to innovate because they'd never faced a real challenge. "Send the signal to all Phoenix units," Pierce ordered. "Initiate Phase 2. Across Earth, cities began evacuating in apparent panic. Factories shut down, power plants went offline, and millions of people fled to rural areas. The Zorn observed it all, interpreting it as the chaos of a primitive civilization facing superior power. They didn't notice that every evacuation followed precise patterns, that every civilian vehicle carried hidden military equipment, that every abandoned city was becoming an elaborate trap. They didn't realize that humanity's greatest advantage wasn't technology, it was imagination. Humans had spent millennia imagining alien invasions, writing about them, making movies about them, and planning for them. "The integration fleet will arrive in 72 hours, Pierce announced to her command staff. "Gentlemen, ladies, we're about to show the galaxy why humans are the scariest creatures in the cosmos. Not because we're the strongest or the most advanced, but because we never, ever stop thinking about new ways to fight. She looked at the tactical display, where 49 Zorn ships were moving into position, completely unaware that they were sailing into the most elaborate trap in military history. "Let them come," Pierce said softly. "Let them think we're weak. And then let's show them why humans write horror stories about ourselves." Commander James Harrison stood in Earth's holographic war room, watching threads of light trace the Zorn integration fleet's approach. Through the quantum-encrypted feeds, he could see every detail of their formation, a beautiful, perfect arrangement of warships that had conquered 47 civilizations. It was almost a shame they'd have to break it. "Refugee evacuations are at 90%, reported Colonel Diana Reyes, her dark eyes fixed on the streaming data. "The Zorn are interpreting the movement exactly as predicted. They think we're running scared." Harrison nodded, running his hand through his graying hair. "And our special packages?" "All in place, sir. Every abandoned city is rigged exactly to specifications. Operation Trojan is ready." The Zorn integration fleet had entered the inner solar system, their ship spreading out in a textbook engagement pattern. On their flagship, High Commander Vexus was growing suspicious. "The humans' response seems too perfect," he mused, studying their sensor data. "Their panic, their retreats, it all follows expected patterns precisely." Officer Crowell looked up from his station. "Perhaps they've studied our previous conquests, High Commander." "Impossible. We maintain strict information control about our conquest protocols." Vexus's facial ridges furrowed. "Increase scan intensity. I want to know what they're hiding." In the lunar base designated Point Thunder, Dr. Olivia Santos monitored the Zorn scanning attempts with growing satisfaction. The quantum shields were performing exactly as designed, showing the Zorn exactly what they expected to see, nothing but primitive technology and panicked preparations. "They're increasing scan power," she reported to Harrison. "Doing exactly what the psychological profile predicted. When faced with uncertainty, they default to using brute force." Harrison smiled. "And our countermeasures?" "The quantum mirrors are in place. The harder they scan, the more convincing our deception becomes. They're literally creating their own false intel." Across the solar system, humanity's true preparations accelerated. In the asteroid belt, mining ships that were actually state-of-the-art warships continued their seemingly routine operations. On Mars, colonial habitats that the Zorn saw as primitive domes concealed launch bays filled with advanced fighters. The Zorn's first obvious move came 3 days before their announced deadline. They launched what they thought was a covert infiltration team toward Earth's largest remaining military installation. The team's stealth technology was impressive. By the standards of every other race they'd conquered, they were completely invisible. But humans had been watching them the entire way. "Should we stop them?" Colonel Reyes asked, tracking the infiltrators' descent. Harrison shook his head. "Let them in. Let them see exactly what we've prepared for them to see." The Zorn commandos breached the base's perimeter with ease, too much ease, though they didn't realize it. Inside, they found exactly what their intelligence said they should find: primitive projectile weapons, basic body armor, simple communication systems. They downloaded technical specifications, troop numbers, and defense plans, all carefully crafted by Earth's intelligence services. "Infiltration successful," the team reported to Vexus. "All data confirms initial assessments. Their military technology is at least 3 centuries behind ours." In her undersea command center, Admiral Pierce received the report with satisfaction. "The bait has been taken," she announced to the Global Command Network. "Initiate Operation Ghostlight. Show them our first card." Across Earth's night side, lights began going out in cities, regions, entire continents. To the Zorn sensors, it appeared that the humans were trying to hide in darkness. A primitive but predictable response. They didn't realize that the power wasn't being shut down, it was being redirected. Deep beneath each city, massive quantum capacitors began storing energy for weapons that would rewrite the rules of space warfare. Every blackout that the Zorn interpreted as fear was actually preparation for something they couldn't imagine. Their civilization is beginning to crack, Vexus announced to his fleet commanders. As predicted, the show of our superior force has broken their will to resist. Prepare for standard conquest protocol. But in the war room, Harrison watched the Zorn's communications with growing satisfaction. They're so convinced of their superiority that they're not even using basic encryption anymore, he noted. They never needed to innovate because they never faced a real challenge. Sir, Colonel Reyes interrupted, we're detecting movement in the Zorn fleet. They're beginning their pre-invasion alignment. Harrison nodded. Right on schedule. Send the signal to Admiral Pierce. Operation Ghostlight is moving to Phase 2. As the Zorn fleet began their surprise attack formation, humanity's forces remained hidden, waiting. Every retreat had been a setup, every sign of weakness carefully calculated. The Zorn were about to learn that humans hadn't spent centuries writing stories about alien invasions for nothing. They were about to learn why, in all of humanity's fiction about first contact, we were never the helpless primitives. We were always the ones to fear. At precisely 0300 hours GMT, Admiral Pierce gave the order that would change galactic history forever. Execute Operation Thunderfall. On the lunar surface, what the Zorn had dismissed as abandoned mining sites suddenly transformed. Massive doors disguised as crater floors slid open, revealing batteries of quantum phase cannons. Dr. Santos stood in Point Thunder's command center, her hands steady as she initiated the firing sequence. All units report ready, Admiral. Begin the symphony, Pierce commanded. The first wave caught the Zorn completely off guard. Beams of concentrated quantum energy, invisible to their sensors until the moment of impact, lanced through space. The supposedly primitive humans had not only matched Zorn technology, they had surpassed it. High Commander Vexus watched in horror as 12 ships of his mighty fleet simply ceased to exist. Impossible, he roared. Their technology level, the scans. Multiple weapons signatures detected. Kral shouted. They're coming from the moon, from Mars, from positions throughout the asteroid belt. In the asteroid belt, what appeared to be routine mining operations revealed their true nature. Commander Nathan Chen, leading the asteroid belt defense force, gave the order, all Minerva units, weapons free. Show them what those primitive mining lasers can really do. The Zorn fleet's perfect formation shattered as attacks came from every direction. Their ships, designed to fight enemies who followed predictable patterns of warfare, found themselves caught in a web of overlapping fields of fire. Status report. Vexus demanded. 23 ships lost. Their weapons, they're like nothing we've ever encountered. They're not just advanced, they're different. On Mars, Commander Arya Patel watched the battle unfold from her underground base. Launch the Phantom Squadrons, she ordered. Across the red planet's surface, hidden hangars opened, releasing swarms of fighters that seemed to flicker in and out of reality, the result of decades of research into quantum uncertainty drives. The Zorn's tactical computers couldn't track them. Their weapons couldn't target them. The fighters seemed to exist in multiple places simultaneously, making conventional defense impossible. This was never about matching their technology, Pierce explained to her command staff as they watched the battle unfold. It was about thinking differently. They perfected their way of war across 47 conquests. We had to invent an entirely new one. But the space battle was just the beginning. As the surviving Zorn ships attempted to regroup, humanity revealed its second surprise. The seemingly abandoned cities across Earth's surface came alive with defenses that defied conventional military doctrine. Colonel Reyes, now coordinating Earth's surface defense, activated the urban warfare systems. Buildings that appeared empty became weapons platforms. Streets rearranged themselves as mobile fortress units emerged from underground bunkers. Every piece of civilian infrastructure had been designed with military applications in mind. "They're launching landing forces," reported Lieutenant Patel. "Multiple drop ships entering atmosphere." Harrison smiled grimly. "Let them come. Operation Trojan is waiting for them." The Zorn ground forces, expecting to face primitive resistance, instead found themselves in an environment where everything was a potential weapon. Urban combat robots disguised as civilian vehicles emerged from hiding. Quantum phase shields flickered to life around key infrastructure. Even the city's public transportation systems revealed themselves as mobile artillery platforms. In orbit, Vexus watched his invasion forces' casualties mount with growing despair. "How?" he demanded. "How did they hide all this?" The answer came in a transmission from Admiral Pierce herself, broadcast on all frequencies. "You saw what you expected to see, High Commander. You've spent so long fighting enemies who behave predictably that you forgot the most important rule of warfare: assume nothing. 40% of the fleet is gone," Krau reported, his voice shaking. "Ground forces are reporting massive casualties. They say everything down there is a weapon. Everything." In her command center, Pierce watched the Zorn fleet's formation continue to deteriorate. "Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology," she explained to her staff. "It's our creativity. We spent millennia imagining how we'd fight this war. We wrote books about it, made movies about it, played games about it. While they were perfecting one way of fighting, we were imagining thousands." The battle had become a rout. Zorn ships, their perfect tactical doctrine useless against an enemy that refused to fight conventionally, either fled or were destroyed. Their ground forces, those that survived, were requesting emergency evacuation from cities that had become living weapons. "Send the final message," Pierce ordered. The transmission was simple: "You have 1 hour to surrender or retreat. After that, we show you what our weapons can really do." This was just the demonstration model. In the war room, Harrison watched the Zorn fleet's response. "They're retreating," he announced. "All ships are breaking orbit. They're running." But Pierce's expression remained grim. "They'll be back," she said. "With a bigger fleet." This was just the beginning. "Good," Harrison replied. "Because we've got a lot more surprises waiting for them." The Zorn Empire had never faced defeat in its 3,000 years of expansion. The loss of their integration fleet sent shockwaves through their hierarchy. In the Imperial Palace on Zorn Prime, the High Council gathered for the first time in 5 centuries. Supreme Overlord Nexus, his ancient scales gleaming in the crystal light, reviewed the battle footage for the 100th time. "These humans," he growled, "they did not just defeat us. They changed the rules of warfare itself." On Earth, Admiral Pierce and her command staff knew they had precious little time. "The Zorn will return with their main fleet," she announced to the assembled military leaders. "Our intelligence suggests we have 3 months at most." "Then we'll be ready," Commander Harrison replied. "The quantum shipyards in the Kuiper Belt are operating at full capacity. Every defeat the Zorn suffered gave us more data about their technology. But humanity's greatest test wasn't just military, it was psychological. The Zorn had sent infiltrators, not just to gather intelligence, but to understand their enemy. One such operative, Agent Zyra, had managed to penetrate Earth's secondary command structure disguised as a human officer. What she discovered terrified her more than any weapon. "These humans," she reported back through quantum-encrypted channels, "they spend their recreation time simulating wars. Their entertainment consists of imagining conflicts. Even their children play at combat with sophisticated strategy games. In the lunar base, Dr. Santos made a breakthrough that would change the course of the war. Their ship's quantum matrices, she explained to Pierce over a secure channel, they're not just technology. They're alive. The Zorn have integrated organic components into their fleet. This revelation led to humanity's next innovation. If Zorn ships were partly alive, they could be influenced in ways pure machines couldn't. Dr. Santos and her team worked tirelessly to develop what they called the Siren Protocol, a weapon that would turn the Zorn's greatest strength into their greatest vulnerability. The Zorn main fleet arrived exactly as predicted, emerging from hyperspace with 2,000 warships. Supreme Commander Zella, personally chosen by Overlord Nexus, led the assault. "Let them witness the full might of the Empire," Zella commanded. But as her fleet approached Earth, something felt wrong. Her ship's quantum matrices began reporting anomalies. The organic components of their systems were responding to signals they couldn't identify. In her command center, Dr. Santos activated the Siren Protocol. "Their ships are partially conscious," she explained to Pierce. "And like any conscious being, they can dream, or have nightmares." The effect was devastating. Across the Zorn fleet, ships began responding to phantom signals, their organic components experiencing what could only be described as terror. Weapons fired at non-existent targets. Navigation systems refused to obey commands. "What sorcery is this?" Zella demanded as her fleet fell into chaos. But the humans weren't done. From hidden bases throughout the solar system, Earth's new hybrid fleet emerged, ships that combined reverse-engineered Zorn technology with humanity's innovative combat doctrine. Commander Harrison led the counterattack himself. The Zorn made one fundamental mistake: he transmitted to all Earth forces. They thought technology alone determined the outcome of war. They forgot about the human factor, imagination, adaptability, and the willingness to try the impossible. The battle that followed would be studied for centuries to come. The Zorn fleet, their perfect formations disrupted by the Siren Protocol, found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. Human ships appeared to phase through solid matter, their quantum drives operating in ways the Zorn had never imagined possible. But the true turning point came when Agent Zyra, who had witnessed humanity's capacity for both warfare and compassion, made a decision that would reshape galactic history. She transmitted the complete specifications of Zorn organic tech integration to Earth's command. "Your species terrifies us," she transmitted. "But what terrifies us more is that you could have destroyed us utterly, and chose not to. You fought to defend, not to conquer." As the battle reached its crescendo, Pierce received a transmission from Supreme Commander Zella herself. For the first time in Zorn history, an Imperial fleet commander was requesting a parley. "Perhaps," Pierce mused, watching the tactical display, "this war will end not with absolute victory, but with something far more valuable, mutual understanding." But as she prepared to respond to Zella's request, new signals appeared at the edge of the system. Neither human nor Zorn. The galaxy, it seemed, had been watching, and other powers had taken notice of the species that had done the impossible. The unknown ships emerged from multiple jump points, their designs unlike anything either humans or Zorn had encountered. Admiral Pierce's command center erupted with activity as sensors tried to analyze these new arrivals. "We're receiving a transmission," Lieutenant Patel announced. "It's broadcasting in multiple frequencies, including some we didn't know existed." The message came from the Galactic Conclave, a coalition of advanced civilizations that had watched the Zorn Empire's expansion with growing concern for centuries. Their representative, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix, appeared on Earth's communication screens. "We have observed," the entity stated, its thoughts translating directly into words, "what may be the most significant event in galactic history, the first true defeat of the Zorn Empire, and more importantly, the manner of that defeat." Supreme Commander Zella, still maintaining the parley position, received the same transmission. The presence of the conclave changed everything. The Zorn Empire had always suspected other advanced civilizations existed, but had never encountered them directly. "Your civilizations stand at a crossroads," the conclave representative continued. "The humans have demonstrated not just technological innovation, but a fundamental reimagining of warfare itself. Yet they've also shown remarkable restraint." Dr. Santos, analyzing the conclave's ships, made a startling discovery. "Admiral," she reported to Pierce, "their technology, it's like they've taken every possible path of development simultaneously. They're what happens when evolution reaches its peak." The conclave had a proposal. They had watched countless civilizations rise and fall, but never had they seen one advance as rapidly or think as creatively as humanity. The Zorn, for all their power, had stagnated, relying on overwhelming force rather than innovation. "We offer you both a choice," the conclave representative announced. "Continue this war, which will ultimately devastate both your civilizations, or join us in something greater." In the lunar base, Commander Harrison received intelligence that changed everything. The Zorn's expansion hadn't just been about conquest, they had been running from something. Their organic technology had been developed as a defense against a threat from intergalactic space, one that the conclave had been preparing to face for millennia. Agent Zyra, her cover now blown, provided the final piece of the puzzle. "Our empire expanded not just for power," she revealed, "but to create a buffer against what we knew was coming. We sought to unite the galaxy through force because we saw no other way." Admiral Pierce faced the most crucial decision of her career. Humanity had proven it could defeat the Zorn, but at what cost? And now, facing an intergalactic threat, perhaps neither civilization could afford to continue their conflict. "We propose an alliance," Pierce transmitted to both the Zorn fleet and the conclave. "Not based on submission or force, but on innovation. Humanity's creativity, the Zorn's biological technology, and the conclave's advanced science, together." Supreme Commander Zella, watching her mighty fleet drift in disarray, made the first move. "The Empire has never known defeat," she announced, "but perhaps that was our greatest weakness. We never learned to adapt, to change, to imagine new possibilities." The peace treaty that followed would reshape galactic civilization. Earth became the center of a new kind of space force, one that combined human ingenuity, Zorn organic technology, and conclave wisdom. The quantum shipyards in the Kuiper Belt began producing vessels that were part machine, part living being, and part quantum consciousness. Dr. Santos and her team worked alongside Zorn scientists, creating defenses that could protect not just star systems, but entire galactic arms. The Siren Protocol was refined into a communication system that could link organic and mechanical systems across vast distances. As humanity looked to the stars now, they saw not just potential conquests or threats, but a galaxy full of possibilities. The war had proven that humans could face any challenge, adapt to any situation, and imagine solutions that other species thought impossible. "We didn't just win a war," Pierce reflected, standing with Harrison and Zella on the observation deck of Earth's new combined defense headquarters. "We proved that the greatest power in the universe isn't technology, or biology, or even pure energy, it's the ability to imagine something new, something different, something better." Above them, ships of all three civilizations patrolled in formation, preparing for whatever threat might come from the darkness between galaxies. But now they faced it not as conquerors or enemies, but as allies who had learned that the strongest defense wasn't in overwhelming force, but in the combination of different strengths, different ways of thinking, and the endless capacity to adapt and imagine. The stars seemed brighter somehow, as if the galaxy itself approved of this new alliance. Humanity had not just survived its first interstellar war, it had changed the very nature of galactic civilization itself.